So today in Crypto Analysis, I'm gonna talk about last week's Bitcoin price action, and I'm gonna specifically talk about this consolidation area, which is also a stockpiling period for people who want to get into Bitcoin at really low prices. I'm also gonna talk about the upcoming decisions on the upcoming ETFs and how the SEC might or not approve them and what could potentially be the reaction in the price. Lastly, I'm gonna talk about the shorts, and we've seen this increasing. We saw in last video how this could potentially go through approximately 35 to 40k and what could that actually mean. I'm gonna explain more about the liquidity and how this could potentially lead to a short squeeze. So if you're curious about this, just chill and keep watching. Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel, and this is your host, the Chick Entrepreneur. So let's head into Bitcoin price. So I told you that I wanted to talk about this consolidation area, but before doing that, I want to talk about resistances, supports, and trend lines. And the reason is because these lines are very important. There's a lot of stored energy, let's say. For instance, let's take a look at this 6.5k level. We've seen the price broken down in here, retesting it here, actually breaking. It went to this 6.6k level, which is a bigger resistance. But the point is that the price has gone there and retraced back, tried to break out from that level and retrace, going back down several times. And one of the reasons is because there is a lot of pending orders. So for instance, if you're a bear and you want the price to go down, you might put a pending order over here. So there is this stored energy. But the thing here is that we have to think about the liquidity, because these prices hold due to the people that want to go in but have not yet gone in there, and they're waiting until the price goes that level again to actually sell. And this is very important because, for instance, let's say this is just an example. Let's say we have 100 million in here of potential short positions, but not everyone can short at the same time, because if they actually did, not everyone would receive the best price, which is the 6.5. So the people who activate their positions before they're gonna get here, but their liquidity is gonna go low as they take positions over here to the downside. And this is important because that's why we break out of these important levels once we retest them several times, because basically the people who went in have already took their positions. And now you could argue that people, yeah, if they sold in here, they could have bought back in here, and they would have even more liquidity to short once it went out. And that's true, but that's gonna be your minority of traders, because most of the people, at least your normal trader or your normal wannabe trader, they're gonna be selling with FOMO. Once they broke out, they want to catch these prices and they think, oh, this is gonna collapse, so I'm gonna go in already. So they are trapped in these places, which is not really the price that they wanted at 6.5k level, but a price lower. And this is why you have this liquidity put in instead of supporting this level, and this is reducing over time, because as we've seen, the price can go up, can go down. So now that we've talked about this stored energy within these trend lines, within these supports and resistances, let's go back. For instance, we knew that this line, this huge line, bearish line, was very important and it had a lot of energy. And for instance, here we know that there were a lot of pending orders, for instance, for the bulls in case that we broke out. But there's also, more importantly, stop losses from the people who want to short at that level. And that's where we have this extra liquidity to move the price up or down. And of course, something that I've talked about, that we are not for sure if it's happening, is price manipulations. So basically, in principle, if you have a lot of money, you can activate or deactivate these triggers. For instance, if you have enough money, you can activate all these stop losses, and they could react. And whenever someone is selling a position, the way to close it is by buying back. So that's why the price fluctuates to the upside in this scenario. But this was true for the opposite side. So for instance, people and even me were kind of buying at this point because we thought that it was actually gonna go up. And again, if you have a lot of money, if you have a lot of momentum, you can actually break down that level. And all this is basically people getting liquidated because they cannot hold their positions, and that's what actually helps the price to even go lower. And we saw that especially in the 6.8k level, which was a really important resistance. Everyone was watching it, and it was all over the news, so everyone was putting pending orders and was putting their stop losses over here. But since we were on a bull run, well, not a bull run, but we were kind of like reversing before, of course there were gonna be more longs and there were gonna be more stop losses for the bulls in here, and that's why the price actually went back down to 6k. And that's something that I mentioned in the past video. If we were gonna break the 6.8k level, we would definitely be seeing at a 6k level. And because a lot of people say, okay, maybe it might reverse 6.5, 6.3. No, I said 6k level, and this is because of all this energy that's stored in there. So now let's get to something that you can find use of this kind of energy lines, these trend lines. And for instance, here we've seen in previous times that we've kind of tried to make these uptrends. And this is a very good way if you want to trade, if you want to kind of do this scalping trading. This is a very useful thing that you can do. For instance, there's a lot of stored energy in here when it's going up. So when you see that the price breaks down, you can actually sell in there, you can actually short it, and most than likely it is gonna go down because of all this energy stored. For instance, we've seen here there's one good trade that you could have done. In here there is another trend that was broken that you could have gone from 6.3 all the way to 6k if you wanted. And this is very interesting because you can do that a lot of the times. But there is these things called, for instance, bear traps or bull traps. That's basically it's this scenario, but instead of the price doing what you're expecting it to do, it actually goes up. For instance, I was actually caught in this bull trap over here, I mean in this bear trap over here, and the reason is because I told you that what I like to do is try to swing trading. So I buy a lot at the low prices, and then I'm taking profit as the time goes up. But I was actually looking out for this kind of breaks through the downside, because that's an opportunity to sell high and actually rebuy and having more either profit or more liquidity. So here we saw that the price was moving on, and when I saw this breaking down from this line, I actually sold a bit of my position in expectation to actually buy a little bit lower. I was expecting the price maybe to hit 6k, but it actually went up, and this area is basically a bear trap because a lot of people actually went down. They were watching this level and then shorted, but actually the bulls pushed up and they were basically trapping here, and a lot of them, they might have their stop losses around 6.7, very close to 6.6k level, because this is a very strong resistance. Personally, I think we won't break the 6.6k level, and if we do break, we still have the 6.8k level. And if you've watched my previous videos, you will know about this path of least resistance. So basically you want to trade where there's least resistance. So there's a lot of levels up here, and I still think that there's kind of enough liquidity on the bearish side. So we got this potential triangle, and again, because there's energy accumulating here and there's energy on this resistance, if this went to go lower than this level, this could go back all the way to 6.2k level, or it could even go lower to the 6k level. So now that we took a look at this price action regarding Bitcoin over the last week, I want to head to something very important. And these lines that you're seeing here, they're basically the dates that the SEC is gonna have to take a decision upon these ETFs, whether it's approving them or rejecting them. And this is very important because this could affect the price. Now let's talk about a little bit about these three ETFs. So as far as I'm concerned, they're not asset backed. So basically they won't buy Bitcoin, but they're more guided towards the CFD or the future contracts. And this goes for Pro shares, Granite shares, and Direction as far as I'm concerned. And this ideally, well, I mean, theoretically, it should not affect the price. Why? Because they're only gonna be buying futures instead of buying the actual asset. And this is very, very important. And the reason is because the only one that's actually gonna be backed up by the asset is the VanEck SolidX. And this is the most important one that we are all looking at right now. But let's see, the first one is actually the 23rd of August, which is the Pro shares, and the SEC is gonna take a decision on that. Then we have on the 15th of September we have these Granite shares. Then we have 21st of September direction, and on the 30th of September we have this important VanEck SolidX. So why could this affect the price? Now we know that the market is irrational, and we've seen it before over here, you know, when the price actually went down in here because they rejected this Winklevoss ETF that everyone knew that they were gonna reject it because it was rejected once before, and this was basically the second appeal. We all knew about that, and still the market sentiment behaved very irrational. Then we have over the 6.8k level, we had the SEC delaying the VanEck SolidX until September. Again, we all knew about this, but still the market behaved irrationally and they still sold. Something that I could expect happening is that people are still gonna be affected by this news, even though that these news are not fundamentally affecting the price, the Bitcoin price, because they're not either buying or selling assets. They're just entering into a market which is basically speculation, because if you know future trading, it's basically gambling in a sense, because you're not buying the actual asset. You're basically speculating on the price, whether it's going up or whether it's going down, and then taking profit or a loss depending on the difference of the price where you bought it and where you sell it. So this is very important because, again, I'm predicting that the market is going to be irrational because people are not educated about Bitcoin, they're not educated about blockchain, they're not educated about all these topics. And that's why if they saw the news, oh, another ETF is rejected, they're going to say, oh, I gotta sell, this is bad news. So, and again, this is one of the reasons that I'm doing my Wednesdays videos on Chiqui trading, because I want to break these misconceptions. I want to educate people on what all this technology really is, because I think that's very, very important. And that's also something that we have in Car's community. I've named his channel, and also I'm gonna name his Discord at the end of the video, because we're creating this community where people can actually go there, ask questions, and not only that, they can be educated about this. But well, regardless of that, this is what I'm expecting. I could actually see the price moving to 6.8. Why? Because there's this saying, buy the rumor, sell the news. And again, people are gonna buy the rumor, and possibly this is one of the reasons that possibly we're heading up. And it wouldn't surprise me, again, I don't know if it's gonna happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if the price actually goes to 6.8k level, and then, hey, guess what, this got rejected. We all know about it, but guess what, people are not educated, so they get this fear, they get this fear of uncertainty and doubt, which is called FUD. And price is gonna dip once again. Something that I'm expecting is that people are gonna buy before the VanEck SolidX announcement. And again, why is this so important? Is because this is the only ETF that is actually gonna back up everything it buys, or well, everything that people's investing in it, with actual assets. So if you invest, let's say $1,000, the fund itself is gonna buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. And this is very important because this is actually gonna affect the price. So just to finish this video, I want to discuss about the shorts and about the extra liquidity. And I mentioned before, whenever you have trend lines, whenever you have resistances, you have all this stored energy of people trying to buy in with pending orders, and people trying to survive with their stop losses. So this is very important because right now there is more shorts than longs, and that means something that people feel more bearish. But this is important because this is not people selling, this is people speculating that the price is gonna go down and basically betting that it's gonna go down. And this is very interesting because this is extra liquidity that's going through these brokers. And for instance, whenever you have a sell position, you have the way to close it, it's to buy back. So all these positions, they're gonna have to buy back at a point. That's whether they want to take profits or whether they want to sell, at a loss or whatever. They're gonna have to buy back. So this is all stored energy, and here's one of the things that we've mentioned before. If there is a big enough player, a whale that has enough money to trigger the stop losses, we could get this potential short squeeze, and that's something that we're looking potentially, and that's something that happened way here before. When it reached 40k, someone just bought in, accelerated, or was a catalyst for that movement, and then all the stop losses basically did whatever they're supposed to do. So anyways guys, that's it for this video. If you like the content and you would like to learn more about it, you can always follow the YouTube channel, or you can follow us on the other social media, which is Instagram and Facebook. But anyways, just before I go, I want to remind you all, stay smart, stay bold, but most important of all, stay cheeky. Take care guys.